Good morning. Let us discuss about 22nd December 2015 newspaper. Here the central article today is about a Syrian roadmap. United Nations Security Council has passed a resolution 2254 which provides a roadmap for the Syrian issue. The important components of this roadmap are a ceasefire and peace between the rebels and Assad regime within 1 month. And after that, in the next 6 months, a credible, inclusive, non-sectarian government. Credible, inclusive, non-sectarian government shall be established within 6 months. Free and fair elections with a new constitution in place within 1.5 years. So, what is the practicality of this? The article argues that it is too aspirational. So if we can see what are the challenges, it talks about an all-inclusive government within 6 months. In this context, who is the opposition has to be defined. So in this case, there are rebels and there are terrorist organizations. There is no unanimity with regard to the terrorist organizations. All the countries, they want to exclude this Islamic State, Jabhat al-Nusra, which is a faction of Al-Qaeda. On the other hand, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, they are sponsoring a few of the terrorist elements in Syria. For example, Arhar al-Sham is backed by Turkey and Jaish al-Islam is backed by Saudi Arabia. So now, they are not ready to regard them as the terrorist organizations. So in this context, will the Iran and Russia and the Assad regime will allow to recognize them as the opposition parties? So it means the idea of inclusiveness, does it include these extreme outfits which are based on the sponsored funds from the Saudi Arabia and Turkey? This is the first question. And the Syria is a reflection of the West Asia politics. So there is a deep mistrust between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So if you can see either it is Yemen conflict or Syrian conflict, sometimes it is considered as a proxy war between these two West Asian powers. A Sunni dominated Saudi Arabia and a Shia dominated Iran. In Syria, there is a unique situation. Assad is a Shiite and the majority of the population are Sunnis. So that's where the major conflict is. So all-inclusive government, how it has to be created is the major question. And the second thing is, the third thing is, the Russia-United States standoff. United States of America want Assad to be exited. That was its initial policy. But it has grossly mistaken the power of the Assad and strength of his military power. And finally, it has come in terms with reality. Now, in the latest text, it did not speak anything about the Assad, and it is left to the Syrian people to decide about the future of Assad. So here, the Russia's stand is this: the Baath party established state structure has to be protected, and there has to be a smooth structural transition. It appeared to be more pragmatic in this case. So in this context, the Russia is bombing the rebels and America is supplying the weapons to the rebels. So how this situation is going to change? After the Cold War, Russia and America are intervening one single country for the first time in Syria. So there appears to be a reapproachment in their stand as of now. And let's see the practicality. Now, vast swaths of the land, other than onto the western coast, they are occupied by Islamic State now in Syria. Now, can we conduct the elections in this place within 18 months? It's a major question. It means there is a presumption that within 18 months, all the forces can eliminate Islamic State or defeat Islamic State and can bring the Syria under a proper structure. So finally, all these extremist elements, leave alone the Islamic State, many of the opponent rebels, they want to have a Shariat law in Syria. But the roadmap provides for a democracy. So to what extent they accept this is another question. So these are all the things which are complicating the solution to the Syrian problem. Now coming to Rajya Sabha, winter of disquiet. Now remember one point. In a democracy, any organization or establishment or institution that is not accountable and do not perform to the results, then people will question its relevance. So if you see the Rajya Sabha's performance, 18% of the allotted time is actually spent on question hour. And almost more than 50% of its allotted time of business is wasted this session, is not used up in this session. This poses the new questions about this particular relevance of the House. Now, the relevance may not be immediately under question. The government recently, with regard to the non-passing of the bills, has questioned the obstructionist role of Rajya Sabha. Though we can say it is politically motivated, but Rajya Sabha has to increase its performance and questionability to improve its space or democratic space as a public institution. On the other hand, if you see constitutional validity of existing Rajya Sabha, still it carries a relevance today. For example, the diversity of India. So the Rajya Sabha gets members from all the states and it generally provides a diversity for the voice of different people across India. And next, it represents the federal structure and interests of the states. Now, whenever there is a regime change, there has to be a continuity provided towards the government. For example, if emergency need to be improved and Lok Sabha is dissolved, in the meanwhile, Rajya Sabha has to agree for that. That provision itself shows that Rajya Sabha has to ensure the continuity of the legislative process. And added to that, so whenever there is a hasty legislation to the public mood in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha has to apply its mind to control these hasty legislations. These fundamentals of having a Rajya Sabha and a bicameral legislature in India, they still hold good. But the relevance on its performance, the questions on its performance are raising. So it's the time Rajya Sabha has to reorient itself to the work. In this context, Rajya Sabha taking up this issue of juvenile justice is one thing. It shows a new hope and a way forward. Now coming to the Agama Shastra and the recent Supreme Court judgment in this case. Now Supreme Court, what it said is, now let's take some of this Agama Shastra. According to Agama Shastra, only few people belonging to certain gotras have to perform the pujas to the deity in a temple. So that's what is the Agama Shastra prescribes. Tamil Nadu government wanted to bring in non-Brahmins, the lower caste people who are well trained, also into the temples as priests. Then it was challenged in the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court said is, if you can recollect the Article 15 and 16, there is a word called only. So a citizen shall not be discriminated only on the basis of caste, etc., race, sex, religion, etc. Only. So in this context, it can be incidental to the other factors of discrimination. So here, the Agama Shastra do not prescribe any caste for a job. But however, it has prescribed certain gotras. It means it also do not allow Brahmins into the all the Brahmins into the sanctorum. So another thing is the right to religion of the people. It not only provides for, one's belief or right to belief and adopt a religion, but also provides for essential practices. So he can believe or right to conscience. It also has profess, practice and propagate. So that is reiterated by this judgment. So in this context, it has said that the Article 14, 15, 16, 17 are not violated, as the caste is not the primary factor for discrimination. It is certain Agama rules which are the belief. That way it has upheld the right to religion over these equality questions. It also has invoked Article 16 subclause 5, which provides an exception in public employment with regard to certain religious practices. So in this context, the article argues one important factor that is ignored is gender equality. All these articles also provides a non-discrimination on the basis of sex. But Agama Shastra did not talk about gender as a qualification or a non-qualification to be a priest. In a later text such as Naradiya Kalpa, etc., the woman is equated with the fourth varna, that is untouchables. So in this context, women are being discriminated on the basis of caste lines and also gender lines, which is grossly ignored by both the Supreme Court judgment and also Tamil Nadu law that is passed. So that is what is this article argues. Now coming to this, the FIR. Now in India, the sexual abuse cases and their judgments, everything are being seen from the perspective of FIRs. Now the national crime records are documented based on these FIRs. But if you closely observe, the FIRs do not give the deep insights about these questions. So most of the cases of sexual abuse, it appears from elopement cases. For example, when a boy and girl eloped and the girl has crossed her the legal age of 18 years. In spite of this, the cases will be filed by parents reporting her as a minor, and cases of sexual abuse, rape and kidnap are filed on the boy. So the FIR, if you take it as a crime record, then in this context, this sexual abuse is bound to be over-reported. And many of these cases do not stand in the court of law. Added to this, there is a lot of subjectivity in the judgments in court of law too. That is what is this verification of the judgments at two sessions court in Mumbai reveal. Next, India-Russia's defense cooperation. You already know that Russia is slowly moving towards or close towards Pakistan. Already there is $2 billion gas deal between Russia and Pakistan. So leave that aside. India is about to order $10 billion worth of weapons to Russia once the Prime Minister reaches to, or during the Prime Minister's visit to Russia. These include stealth frigates, that is the Talwar class stealth frigates, which is called Kirvak, S-400 air defense systems, and certain helicopters too. So here the major bottleneck till date is India's policy of Make in India. And also, with regard to the stealth frigates, the engines need to be supplied by supplied from the Ukraine. And after this Kyiv issue, Ukraine and Russia has the strained relations. But these issues are solved now. And finally, a big deal is on the way between India and Russia with regard to defense is concerned. Now coming to a Nepal deal, let's recollect that. What the Madhesis want, an identity, a province exclusively for the Madhesis. What the Nepal fears is that may in the future lead to secessionist tendencies. And the second thing is the citizenship laws shall be diluted, because any woman who marries outside the country, her offspring will not get the right to contest in elections and occupy the constitutional positions. As most of the Madhesis have matrimonial relations with India, it prohibits them to provide an opportunity to occupy the constitutional positions. So these have to be these have to be revisited. And one more thing is proportional representation. To the size of the population of Madhesis, there has to be representation in the legislative houses. These are the three major demands. So it appears the government is giving or else has given certain promises on these issues. But however, Madhesis says that there are no concrete promises and there are no timelines with regard to the implementation of the promises. But however, India welcomed it as a good move. So which shows that the standoff between India and Nepal, it is getting diluted, and we hope these relations will improve. And these relations, they have the long historical bondings, and these are necessary for India's neighborhood policy. So these relationships have to set an example. And India was shown in very bad light in our neighborhood because of these strained relationships. So thank you very much and all the best.